First of all, Joel, thank you so much for coming back.
Wait, can we talk about wardrobe for a second? So you know how you're wearing a lovely orange sweater
Joel's
today?
back with us again. Yes,
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I didn't change.
And we're going to talk about
full disclosure.
Yeah.
We just filmed another one. This will be
No,
weeks later, but I'm hoping that no one will notice that I wore this
I'm talking about wardrobe
sweater.
for a reason.
Okay,
so
go
you're
ahead.
wearing. So I think a lot of men.
Are you upset that Nordstrom's men's is closed?
A little bit.
Yeah,
because I had a person.
No,
there.
I remember. I know.
Anyway, but so I went today and I looked, and it's all like.
Anybody have an ADD coach?
It's gray. It's blue. It's black. I have no colors. So
I used to be that way, and you know what? I don't know. I'm going to be 50. By the way, mark it in your calendar. I'm going to be 50.
Is there a party with bourbon?
Yeah, there's going to be a party.
With bourbon?
Always. But you don't drink.
I will drink bourbon with you.
Okay.
I'll tell you bourbon stories later.
I actually have some great bourbons that I just brought back from Miami. Eagle Rare.
Nice.
Oh, right?
I just drink what's the one with the horsey on top? It's a round bottle. I can't remember what it's called. Good. It's good. Who knows?
You're going to say
it's hard to get.
Some Crown Royal.
No. You know it. You've drank it a million times. Anyway.
I don't know what you're trying to say, but
there's 7 different horses.
And there was another one that my husband had tried when we were in Nashville.
Yeah.
I really want. Have you ever done the Kentucky bourbon?
No.
That trip?
No.
I kind of want to do that. Anyway, we're not talking about bourbon today, nor are we talking about wardrobe.
Tenant side.
We're talking about. I want to thank Joel for introducing me to Elaine Page.
Oh, Elaine Page is a paralegal.
Yeah.
If
she's coming on the podcast, thanks to you, she's going to talk about landlord side.
Right.
And also,
she acts for a lot of landlords, and she is a wizard at residential tenancies, at navigating the court system in residential tenancies.
And by the way, just PageParalegal.com.
Yes, just Google Elaine Page Paralegal.
She does a lot of press. So
tons of stuff on LinkedIn. Lots of stuff.
I would say, just so the trolls don't come after me, I would say I'm bringing her on actually not so much for landlord rights, but more so to really warn or educate people out there who are thinking about getting into that investment property, buying that one pre-con condo and thinking it's going to be super easy and it's just a cash cow and we can get the tenants out whenever we want and we can sell it whenever we want. So
look, Leverage's unofficial motto is knowledge is key, right? In other words,
Joel just came up. Can you be my unofficial co-host?
Of course.
Okay, great.
So the knowledge that we are trying to impart isn't on landlord or tenant side. We're not having a bias either way. We're not biased for buyers or sellers.
Or tell the people on TikTok
agents or lawyers. No, but we're not.
But what
we're trying to do is say, look, if you have knowledge when you go into an investment, that there's a possibility that your rental flow may be cut off for a period of time while you're dealing with a difficult tenant.
The only reason
that's what we need to talk about.
I did an episode with a very old friend of ours, Howie Paskowitz, who works for Starlight.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely human. Okay. Brought him on to talk about, landlords and the whole rental situation. I had to take the video down. We did not say anything bad, but the one comment was that there was not the rules did not give any incentive to landlords to renovate. I didn't say keep up. I didn't say deliver a clean working condo or a clean working apartment. I just said, we talked about the process of if someone who owns a building wants to renovate, they can't increase the rent. They can't recoup the money. So from an investment standpoint, is that the best thing for you to do? Anyway, long story short, it was taken the wrong way and I take the video down. So I always like to explain myself. Yes.
That's kind of terrible.
So going back to what I wanted to talk about today was if you are a tenant and you're working, and again, I would highly recommend working with someone. If you're going to an apartment building, which, by the way, I send a lot of people to. I'll have someone who calls me and says, I'm looking at, moving into, I want to be somewhere for a long time. And I say, then go to an apartment building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because how many of these condos are bought as an investment and they're just going to sell it from under you. You're going to move every 5 to 7 years. And it's not fun.
Let me just tell you from tenant side, again, if your landlord has one unit, and they have a mortgage.
So a small investor.
Yeah, and things get tight in the economy and they can't pay their mortgage, you might have some problems as a tenant.
So first of all, any building over 1996 is not under the Rent Control
You got
Act.
it?
So let's start there. I own a condo. It was built. I just bought a pre-con.
Sure.
I did not. And it is 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I have a tenant in there, and my mortgage is up for renewal, and my mortgage is going to skyrocket.
Sure.
And they are paying my 2.5% interest rate, and now I'm going to be 5.5 interest rate. What as a tenant am I going to expect? And is legal to a tenant?
It's hard. You're gonna get an increase.
How big an increase?
Beyond
whatever I want.
Yeah, they can go beyond.
So this is something to understand, and I have had people come and see rental properties. I represent a company that owns several older buildings in the city. They sometimes list some properties with me that their property management company doesn't, and I'll have I'll have the other agents say, "Oh, they're looking for something new. They want a pretty."
Yes.
And I said, "Okay, no problem." Yep. But good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
We had a client.
It's so hard.
That sold a house and moved into a brand new building and also had an entry level rent price. Yep. And I said to her, I get that you want this. I get the move is really hard for you. I really do. Like when you downsize or right size, whatever you want to call it, and you sell your forever home and you have to move into an apartment, which by the way, a lot of people do because we've talked about that.
Yeah,
that delta between
side size, right? Because the delta's gone.
The delta's gone.
Yeah.
And just you can't sell your house.
Just if you haven't watched some of the previous episodes, number one, you should, of course, for your benefit. But if you haven't, what we're really talking about is selling your principal residence as you age. And then it used to be that you bought a condo and you could live off the spread.
The delta difference, yeah.
Now you can't. The delta's gone. You're going to spend as much for a condo plus the bloody maintenance fees.
And I was having that exact conversation with someone today.
It's very difficult.
So, and she went into it and I went, I got to tell you, this is too good to be true. Right. And it was very much that. So the other rule is that if you are an owner of a building, I learned this from Howie, you own a building, you're this huge company, and you say, okay, I want to build, this is what a lot of them are doing now. They've got these huge parking lots, and they're like, oh, forget the visitor parking lot. We're going to build another structure there. The government will not allow you to build that without doing improvements to the old one.
Right. And you also can't convert to condo. So you can't take an apartment building and convert it. No, not in the city of Toronto.
In Bathurst.
No. So
what about the ones on Bathurst?
So there's property. So what they did is they converted them to co-ops first. So they created a co-op, and then so they're trying to end run. So you can
go from apartment to co-op?
Co-op, and then they're trying to end run, but none of them have been successful.
None of them ever
at conversion to condo.
None of them convert. No. Well, the problem is also we're getting way off topic, but the problem is
that because
but the goalpost keeps changing. So right today, this is what you need to convert to a condo.
What we're talking about is the fact that the government is desperate for.
Capital D.
To increase housing stock and increase affordable housing.
And none of what they're doing is helping.
And in my respectful view, the building of homes is not scalable. So you can't just say, I want to build X number of homes this year, because it just doesn't happen.
Where, how fast? Has anyone ever seen like a pothole or like water mains fixed on their street?
And I think what your friend at Starlight was trying to say was, people with capital need to be incentivized to create rental units.
Yes.
Not just at the individual condo level. So we need government assistance to help these people build apartment buildings.
Thank you.
And
by the way, it's okay if they make money. I just want to put it out there. Let them make money and they'll pass it along.
But the government has to incentivize them by saying, it's okay if you make money, but we're going to give you a property tax break so that you can make rents affordable. And I think the rental affordability is such a huge challenge because
like the land transfer tax, they want to make housing so affordable, but God forbid we take away the land transfer tax.
But when we look at we have such a narrow perspective because we also should look at the worldview.
Okay.
So if we look at New York,
Joel's always my moral compass.
But New York and Rome and Hong Kong,
well, we talked about
and
this,
cities all around the world,
no one can afford to live in them.
Rental rates are
forget rental rates. No one can afford to live.
can't
How many
live
people do
there,
you know who live
in Manhattan?
And one of the 1% don't answer. But like, how many people do you know that live in the island of Manhattan?
It's a
Central
challenge.
London,
It's a challenge.
Tokyo. Like
It's a
the
challenge.
reality is that when people
So we don't have a
complain-
right. We don't have a God-given right. A mortgage is not a right. It's a privilege, right? Where we live is similarly can be thought of that. But we do have the right.
I'm not sure I'd call my
to
mortgage
housing.
either of those.
Yeah, I know. But we do have a right.
burden,
We do have a right to. We should have a right
cramping
to a
on my
roof
shopping.
over our head, and the government should help by trying to increase rental housing stock, and they've done that. In a way, so all these condos that are getting built are being converted to housing stock, but I think there's some fundamental problems with infrastructure and things like that. Like everybody talks about row housing as being a great idea, but don't ask where the water and the gas and are going to come from, because the city just says we don't have the money to do it, right? And that's a fact.
Well, they don't have the money. They're bleeding money.
They don't, and that's why they increase the land transfer tax, and that's why we're looking at increased property tax rates. But if I'm a tenant looking right now in the GTA, City of Toronto, it's so hard. It's so difficult because I'm going to tell you personal experiences, and I'm going to tell you the personal truth. The personal truth is that to find a condo, a rental apartment for my son, I had to pay 6 months upfront. Right?
Did you co-sign?
It's illegal, and I co-signed.
And you co-signed?
Yeah, so I'm on the lease with him, and I paid 6 months up front. And I have the financial ability to do that, but most people don't.
So what I tell
there's
people all the time...
it's illegal, and I'm a lawyer, and I did it.
So first of all, let's talk about all the things that are illegal from a tenant perspective
Sure.
that people still ask. So one thing that I will say about that, and this is the advice I give anyone, or I tell the agents on my team to share with people who come to them who want to find a rental property. Yeah. Tell them up front, first of all, it's not you.
No, it's not you.
But second of all, it's easier to buy a property.
Way
not
easier.
Financially, but I'm saying the process.
Way
Because
easier.
your money is as good as the next person's money. Correct. But when you have to rent it, they are so scared. And really, it's not their... I don't blame them. I blame the changes in the Rental Tenancy Act to a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Because they're so terrified to put the wrong person in there and never get them out. And you hear horror stories.
So the truth
and all
is,
this
my
stuff.
son and I were rejected.
I'm not speaking about you guys.
No,
I'm
but
saying in
the
general.
truth
But
is-
there's a perfect example.
The truth is, we were rejected from a number of opportunities, and the reason we were rejected is because
You're not 2-income?
at the time my son was not employed,
Oh, that's a problem.
and so they have this picture of young Master Kadish hitting bongs and playing video games and writing on the walls.
1,000%.
So
By the way, I would tell my landlord the same thing. Sorry, I
don't
would.
take
No.
me.
No, there's no.
And by the way, I took it personally.
Of course
And
you did.
so it's not me, right? And so you're telling me it's not me, but I did. But
Well,
but
for
the
sure.
but the lesson in that is, as a tenant, you have to be prepared with a nice package.
I always say you
credit
have
rating.
to create
Yeah.
a story.
A story.
Curate a story. So
Yeah.
I sit down and I say, okay, I'm not going to say to you, let's go out and see everything right now. The first thing you need to do, if it's you and your fiance, or it's you, or you, whatever, whoever you're, or by yourself, get a really great picture, because by the way, they're looking you up on Facebook. They're
sure
looking you up on every social, LinkedIn, all this stuff. So 1, 2, give them access to your bank account. Like literally, I know it sounds ridiculous. Give them access. And I don't want to say give them your PIN, but here's my T4 they might ask you for your T4. Give them 3 years, not 1 year. If they're asking you for your pay stub, give them 6 months, not 2. If you are legit, give them everything you can. You will get it over the other person.
And you have to have a package that's ready to go. So you just have to hand them this.
No. You're not
credit
doing
rating,
it when. That's right. You do it. I keep it all in a folder in the cloud, and then you can just attach it to anything that you're interested in.
I'm talking from personal experience. My son did not have a credit rating at the time.
Listen, it's something to think about if you're a younger person.
And
I tell my kids,
you.
get a credit card early on.
Yeah.
I mean, don't go crazy, but
No, but it really so these two things, the fact that he was between jobs and the fact that he did not have a credit rating, it didn't matter what my credit rating was. It didn't matter what my financial standing was.
Because what happens in 6 months if you decide no? And they don't want to sue you.
And also, then they start to question, well, why is he between jobs? And why doesn't he have a credit rating? And that's a lot of personal stuff. So, by the way, we're not getting into the legality of human rights.
Yes.
We are talking about the practicalities of the market.
There's so many human... pets. Let's talk pets.
Yeah, I mean, so the landlord... it used to be called the Landlord and Tenant Act, then it became the Residential Tenancies Act. So in the early 90s, the Landlord and Tenant Act was amended to say that, simply put, you're allowed to have pets. Now, this is subject to the rules of the condo. So the condo rules override the rules of the Residential Tenancies Act. But in most cases, tenants are allowed to have pets in their property. And landlords will say, no smoking. Landlords will say...
No pets.
No pets. Landlords will say...
So there's the discrepancy,
it's illegal to ask for post-dated checks.
Or deposits.
Correct. You can simply say every month, I will e-transfer you. And that's what I do now. I e-transfer I said, you want post-dated checks? And they laughed, right? They said, no, just e-transfer every month. But it is illegal to ask for post-dated checks.
It's illegal to ask for a pet deposit.
And do you know
how many of them I have processed?
Absolutely. and remember, from tenant side perspective, there is only one form of lease which is legal. And that lease is
tenancy agreement.
And it's on the government website. You can Google it. It's a fillable Word and PDF document. And if you get asked to sign something else, don't sign it, because that's the only one that's that.
Well, so we do,
yeah,
right? So we do, but the reality is that we just did one deal.
So the terms of your offer, of the TREB offer to lease, right, residential side, get embodied in the second agreement.
Except that all the rules in the residential tenancy agreement trump anything that's in there. So I always say that to we just went through one. Someone on my team just did a lease for a woman who was selling her house. She's an older lady.
Yep.
She did not want to be homeless.
Correct.
You get to a certain age, you want to know exactly what's going on. We totally understood where she was coming from. We're like, your house isn't even on the market yet. No, I want to find a place. I want to know where I'm living. I want to have time. And this agent was like, she's retired. She has no income. Her house isn't sold. I don't want to, same thing. And we had to convince him. Yeah. We're like, so I said to him, no problem. You go ahead and get some single guy. Sorry, Max. Some single guy.
So why is it always Max?
No, because he was single. But I said, I go, who's going to throw parties and not clean your appliances? 100%. I said, this is a woman who's got, home, her own home pride. She's of a different generation
100%.
Who's not going to have, she's going to have her grandchildren over. I said, but you know what? Don't take our offer. No problem.
Yeah, I know. But the tenant side, the one thing I do encourage you is to educate yourself. There's so much information on the government websites. The government does have hotlines. There are legal aid clinics that specialize in tenant side. 311 is actually
very, very helpful.
You can get lots of help.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I'll give that to the city.
Most landlords, are good. And most tenants want to get along with their landlords. Yeah. But unfortunately, the pursuit of profit is narcissistic. In other words, landlords pursue profit. They don't really care if you lost your job. They don't really care. And remember, even, the Residential Tenancies Act has come a long way, because there's even provisions for termination for spousal abuse now. They really have come a long way in recognizing that there are various scenarios under which both sides will need to terminate, right? And if you do get that notice of termination on the tenant side, it's so uncomfortable, because this is where you put your head down every night, and it makes you feel insecure in your home. But if you are getting that correspondence, go on the websites. The Law Society of Ontario has a referral service. You can Google it. You fill out a form. Free 30-minute consultation with a lawyer on lots of different areas, not just residential tenancies. But, things like these kinds of resources can just help you to
feel
know
a little bit,
what
put
your
your
next,
head right,
know
put
what
your
your
head
next
down at
steps
night.
are.
Yeah.
And if you need to leave, it'll help you know, do I deserve compensation? So in other words,
A lot of people don't know that
if you sell and if to move in for a family member, right? And by the way, the penalties for that are now 25 Gs. Like they've increased the penalties dramatically.
Sorry, I'm
if
going to
you
back up for
lie.
a second.
Yeah, go
One of
ahead.
the only ways, so you're a tenant, you're in a property that's owned as an investment, and
Less than 6 units.
and the owner decides,
Can't be
you
owned
know
by a
what?
corporation. Never mind. Keep going.
It can't be what?
There's all kinds of rules about who can. If a property is owned by a corporation, the corporation's son can't move in.
Oh no. Oh, CC, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Got to know the rules, honestly.
no, you do. And so, I blanketly say it's next to impossible to remove a tenant.
It's difficult.
And really one of the only ways you can do it is if you were to say that yourself or an immediate family member is going to move in and use that property.
But now there's a 1 month compensation that has to be paid.
Was that
It's
by
new.
the Liberal government a while
No,
back,
it's new.
Kathleen?
It's new now.
I thought Kathleen Wynne did it.
It's relatively new.
So you are due, but I have a client who bought a property. There was 2 tenants in it, and the basement tenant gave us
Yeah.
real cause for concern.
Sure.
So we did a holdback of $25,000. They had 3 months to remove the guy. Now we were not moving into it for 4 months anyway because the upstairs tenant
that's a tight timeline based on what the tribunal is doing now.
And as you know, the term cash for keys.
Yeah, cash for keys.
So listen, as a tenant listening, and this is where landlords are freaked out because in that scenario, the guy was paying for a basement apartment, which was ultimately a basement apartment with his own kitchen and laundry, but whatever, paying $1,500 a month.
And to replace that, he's going to now be paying $2,500, and that's the problem. And the tenant, I'm
$15,000
that's fine.
it cost him.
Yeah, but you know what? The tenant doesn't. If you believe in tenants' rights, then the tenant tenant does not share in the equity that has been earned by. So if my tenant lives in the property for 20 years, the property is quadrupled in value now. The tenant doesn't share in that.
I agree.
So when you throw them out and they can't replace their rent, I don't have a lot of sympathy for the landlords and the owners because give them their fair cash for keys so that they can afford to rent the same place.
By the way,
because you've made 8 times the profit.
Listen, I've said many a times what's your saying? Like if you can make it go away, write the check. There's
write
no
a check,
question.
solve the problem. Right, 100%.
There's no question.
But I just want our landlords out there to recognize the equity that they've earned on these long-standing units instead of trying to nickel and dime the tenants.
But $40,000 is not nickeling and diming.
But it is in the long term because the increase in rent lasts forever.
But they also didn't increase their rent for the last 10 years, let's say.
But the government sets the guidelines.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with the guideline rent, the guideline increases, then lobby the government, but don't take it out on me, the tenant.
Well, I'm not going to take it out on you.
No, but you are indirectly because you're doing things.
Yeah. First of all, I don't own a nickel.
No, I'm talking about bad landlords are doing things to agitate the tenants to get them to leave. And then those tenants legitimately have nowhere to go.
I agree.
And so for those tenants, and in many situations, we find this inequity of bargaining power. So the system has to help the tenant by having this protective shell around it. Yeah. Because people who are mega landlords have all the money, all the time, all the lawyers.
Yeah. It's very true.
And my tenants don't. And so to right the inequity, we sometimes, we may have over-legislated, but we do need to protect this population. I agree. And we do need to ensure that housing exists. So
sometimes I'll use it. This is a horrible analogy. Yeah. But I remember when they changed the rules and they said that maternity leave was now going to be a year.
Right.
Wonderful for women. Sure. I had 2 children. I went on maternity leave.
And it's 18 months now.
Is it 18 months
Yeah,
now?
you can go up to 18 months now, yeah.
So...
Paternal.
Does that stop employers from hiring
Correct.
women? So there's a double-edged sword to
that's why I said over legislation is not what we need. We need a balanced approach between...
Also, people just need to be good human beings. I'm not like...
We need a balanced approach between building new apartment buildings, which is not on anybody's radar.
Yeah.
We need a balanced approach to how cities and regions and provinces are going to deal with this across the board. We need tenants who don't take advantage of the system, and we need landlords who don't take advantage of the system.
So we talked. So pets.
Yeah.
So it's actually illegal to tell someone that they can't have a pet.
Correct.
You can't throw someone out. But I had a client who we signed a lease.
You're on a month-to-month lease forever.
You're on a month-to-month lease forever. So, and then that's the other thing that also scares.
Absent a reason.
So in the contract it said that there was no pets allowed.
Right.
And he's like, I'm going to get a dog, and I'm like, you can't do that. He's like, sure I can. I know they can't throw
absolutely.
me out.
Absolutely, can't get rid of me.
Right. And I'm like, don't get a pet. He didn't anyway. But so pets aren't, even though it says that there's no pets. Subject
to condo rules. Just if you're renting a condo, the condo rules override.
I understand, but if it says that you're allowed a dog
in the condo,
and they're like, and they bring a 10-pound dog, even though they said it's not,
you're good.
But if they said there's no, I have seen landlords go on people's Facebook and go, whose dog is that? I'm not renting it. They have a dog, and they'll say, no, it's not my dog, and they'll go, no. But tenants need to understand that is the thorough from individual investors. Listen, again, I work with a larger corporation who are like, check, great, done, you're in. Like much more than they're not going on your Facebook page.
I agree. So
smoking. What about smoking? Is smoking illegal? I actually would like to know what's the law on legal on smoking.
Again, if you're in a condo, the condo rules govern. Otherwise, you can dart away.
So some of the
dart guy is in effect in my house, in the basement apartment.
But okay, so condo rules say no smoking.
Then there's no smoking.
Okay, so then I'm smoking in the unit.
You are subject to the laws of the province.
Okay, so now I'm a tenant. What happens? I'm smoking.
Go ahead.
Do I get kicked out?
No chance.
So I'm against the condo rules, though.
No, sorry. Then the condominium corporation will come down on the owner, and the owner will come down on you, and you.
Okay,
you will get tossed.
As a tenant,
you will get tossed eventually.
But so I would be taken to the tribunal.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing.
And you may also be taken to Superior Court because of the breach of the condo rules.
Right.
But.
So don't smoke. It's fine.
What we're saying is. Tenants may have particular needs. They may have particular needs for access. They may have their own issues, and there are human rights laws which apply to the way tenants are accepted or not accepted. For me to sit here and tell you I know anything about that beyond making that statement is foolish. And if you are in that situation, then I encourage you, reach out to the Law Society for the referral service. Reach out to legal clinics. Reach out to the Residential Tenancy Board themselves. Go to the website, make a phone call. They have officers who will speak to you. And I really encourage you to educate yourself, because no one's going to do it for you. And you really do, in some cases, have to advocate.
No, you do.
They can't cut off the water. They can't cut off the hydro.
So interesting. So I'm a tenant, and I have said to my landlord, I'm in a rental house, and the furnace is gone. It's the winter.
I have the right to withhold my rent under certain circumstances, where those types of services are not being provided. And again,
so no deposit no deposit other than first and last is legal.
You're allowed key deposits where the key's actually, it's $50.
Where
the key actually costs money, right? But
that's in
there's no such thing as key money. In other words, you cannot. There's no purchasing of leases. Leases are not assets that are sold.
Right.
So if somebody says I want $1,500, or there's a fee to enter into the lease, that is not legal.
Oh my God, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So in Ontario in the 80s and 90s, not only did tenants sell leases to other tenants, there was a market in resale leases, but landlords would say, well, I want key money. And so there was a great trade in that, and then that loophole got clogged, and they said, no, you can't charge for the entering into a lease.
I was introduced to a client who had a triplex.
Yeah.
Lovely older woman, owned it for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic street, fantastic area. She is 100% aware that the tenants that she has in there, there's no, like we're talking, they've been there now for 10 years. There's no paperwork. There's no nothing. Have brought in roommates.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're charging them.
Yes.
They're making money on the unit that they're, not only are they living there rent free, they're making money and she can't get them out.
Bring that back to Elaine as a topic when you do bring her in for your podcast, because I'm actually I'll watch that, because that's really interesting to me, what happens in those circumstances.
Because that property, because of the cap rate, it's so low, no one would touch it.
But do people know what cap rates are?
Oh,
that's the rate of return for an investor, right?
Yes.
So when an investor invests, they expect to make money. And so
depending on the market, that cap rate goes up or
it goes down, depending on what interest rates are. There's a lot of factors. But again,
so it's not priced like a residential property.
You know, I want to talk, you know, it's so funny, right? Because the amount of bad landlords and bad tenants is few. But that's what gets focused on.
Isn't that the way the world's working right now?
And it just is. And it's partly social media, partly it's media.
Voices, the loudest voices.
And so, but what we're really saying is, if you have a great working relationship with your landlord and you pay your rent on time, and your landlord is reasonable to you and you're reasonable to your landlord, that's the best case scenario.
By the way, I have told clients, take the better, like the great tenant over the other one that was going to pay you more money. And by the way, if you get a great tenant, don't hike the rent up.
And there's also ignorance, right? So if your landlord says something to you like, they try.
I'm coming over now.
Yes, I'm coming over now. Or they attempt to do something illegal. I think you can say, look, you know, we have this great relationship, but I want to let you know that X and Y. And I'm hoping that there'll be the respect on both sides.
No, well, it depends who you're talking to.
And Elaine and I are sitting here, you know, talking about these radical perspectives for really bad landlords.
I actually want to do an event, because I think the two of you would actually have so much to talk about.
Yeah,
like an investor event.
Really bad landlords, you know, and really bad tenants. But I do want to arm the tenant with the ability to get the knowledge so that they can also sometimes educate their landlords.
Okay, so let's talk two things before we get off. Okay, so one is, I enter into a lease, and in the contract it says that the landlord is going to hold on to a copy of the key. Legal, not legal?
Sure.
We're going to do lightning round.
They have access.
We're doing lightning round before we
They have to give you reasonable notice unless it's an emergency.
It's legal that they have the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much notice do they have to give you? And
reasonable,
do you have to agree
reasonable notice.
Okay, so I am the landlord. I want to come in tomorrow at 8 o'clock. It's 24 hours.
I need to do an appraisal, right? Because my mortgage is up.
Do they need a reason?
No, but...
No?
Why not share the reason?
No, but let's just... No, lightning round.
Sure.
Lightning round. Stay with me, Joel.
No, they don't need a reason.
How much...
And they should give at least...
Can you say no?
No, not really.
Okay. You can't. But not really.
Try and cooperate.
Just say no, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
So your tenant, the landlord wants to go, hi, I'm coming over tomorrow.
No. I want reasonable written notice.
You want reasonable written notice?
I do.
Okay, great. 3. Shoot, I forgot what the other thing I was going to ask you.
Notices of rental increases have to be given. They're
so
given on a
they've now
particular
given
form.
you notice, I'm going to sell, and you say, I don't want anybody coming in on the weekend, and I don't want anybody coming in after 5 o'clock.
Sure.
Is that legal? Just yes or no?
I don't know. I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is it's really...
I want that to be a clip.
It's really hard... It's really hard from the tenant's perspective to have 50 people treading through your personal property.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think that's But I'm actually asking because I always understood that the tenant cannot refuse.
That's correct.
People coming through.
That's correct.
You must give them 24 hours notice. So that's
refuse.
legal.
They're going to refuse.
But they can also say, listen, you can't come in after 7 o'clock or I work between these hours
absolutely.
or whatever.
Absolutely. So when I say that, if I'm advising a tenant, if a tenant comes to me and says, my landlord wants to show my place, I'm going to put the bricks to the landlord and I'm going to say, I will give you that access.
Do I have to keep it clean? I'm a tenant. Do I have to keep the place clean?
Not really.
So that's another thing, right? No.
I'm going to live.
I might not flush the toilet.
Litter box, baby. Don't change the litter box.
I told Elaine that. We're going to leave it on this one.
Yeah.
But I said to Elaine, we're talking about this from a tenant, like a landlord side. And I had a client who was selling the condo. The tenant was leaving, but it ended very badly.
Yeah, it does.
And I said, you know what? Take your brother-in-law, take me, take whoever you want, but like take your dad, but she's like, would you go in there? I said, no problem. We go in. She left us a surprise in the toilet.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what Elaine said to me? She goes, she was lucky it was in the toilet.
Yes, absolutely.
On that note, thank you,
Next
Joel.
time. So much fun. Had a great time. Cheers.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.